Hey everyone, my guest today is the actress and singer Amy Irving. Amy made her first stage appearance when she was 9 months old. By the time she was 10, she had already been in many, many plays. She made her off-Broadway debut at the age of 17, and from that moment on, she has received critical acclaim, appearing in plays like Heartbreak House, The Road to Mecca, Broken Glass, The Three Sisters Ghosts, among others. In 1976, she made her film debut in Carrie. She went on to star in The Fury, The Competition, Yentl, for which she received an Academy Award nomination, Anastasia, Crossing Delancey, and so many more. Recently, Ms. Irving has released an incredible album called Born in a Trunk. I am so honored and thrilled to have you on the podcast today. Thank you, Amy, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You know, we were talking before we started recording. We have so many random connections. One of them, though, is at the time that you filmed Crossing Delancey, my boyfriend at the time was cast as Peter Riegert's younger brother at the pickle store. His name was Michael Ornstein, and it was like the biggest thing that could have happened to a young actor starting out in his career. So I visited the set. I just really remember that film being one of those films as it was just so meaningful. To see someone with like out a blow dry on screen, that alone was a huge thing. But that was just one of those movies that was a touchstone. As it turns out, like My Big Fat Greek Wedding, like it didn't matter if you were Greek, it didn't matter if you were Jewish. It just had this universal story that if you had a family, which most humans do, it was a touchstone for people. And I know you have done so many things before and since, but I'm curious, is that movie something that remains a special memory for you, or is it just one of many things that you've done?
Oh, it's very special to me.
Okay.
I had an amazing time making it because it was, there I was shooting in on the streets of New York City, which is, for any actor, that's the coolest place to be shooting, except maybe Paris.
Yeah.
And I was working with all women, with Joan Micklin Silver, and Susan Sandler wrote the play that it was based on, and she wrote the screenplay. And it was a woman's story, and it just it felt really comfortable and really intimate. You could pull your director aside and just say, when I'm changing in the changing room, can you get this side, because I don't want to be there. I mean, you can just talk girly stuff and feel protected, and Joan took really good care of me. And when I saw the film, I usually see a film once, and I watched it with my mother and my stepfather, and just the three of us in a movie in the theater. And I remember when it was over, turning around to them and just saying, wow, I really like this film. And I don't say that about many things that I've done. So it was nice to really enjoy it. And now we have screenings occasionally at people invite us to, Film Forum and other places. Peter Riegert and Joan and I have done Q&As and presented the films, and it still plays so well. I mean, to sit in an audience, and I'd never seen it with an audience before until I started doing these screenings, and to hear the response, and it gets a lot of laughs, and people really are so warm about it and so loving about it, and people who are affected by it are very. The other day I was doing an interview and for Vanity Fair actually, and he asked me to meet him at this bookstore on the Lower East Side. And it was called Pickle Books. I think it's called Pickle Books, the Pickle Bookstore. And it was literally this woman was inspired by Crossing Delancey, and the whole store is kind of sells books and pickles, like my character, and that ran a bookstore, and it was so touching. She wasn't there the day we went, but her mother opened the store for us, and her mother was crying, and I didn't know what was wrong. And it it was like the culmination of, wow, I saw this film with my daughter, and it's my daughter's favorite film, and she lost her job during COVID, and she started this bookstore, and it just was kind of, it meant something to a lot of people. I know Peter Riegert says that, the amount of women that come up to him about being the pickle man, and women come up to me and say, I'm still looking for my pickle man. And yeah, I think it's the one that has resonated. I've had the most feedback of
Right.
films. I mean,
For
Carrie,
decades.
yeah, Carrie was a big one too, but Crossing Delancey has been kind of the one that keeps coming back at me. As a matter of fact, I'm going out in April with Peter to present it at the TCM festival, because it's the 50th anniversary of Warner Brothers, and they're showing Crossing Delancey there. So it's like, oh, okay. So literally the day after my concert in New York, I fly to LA for that. I went from feeling like my career was over to being very busy.
That's incredible. Well, I mean, when you mentioned Carrie, your film, your screen debut again is like something that, I mean, it's niche, right? In the world of horror or whatever Carrie is, that is a really long lasting, impactful film.
Yeah, well, it's one of the better B movies out there.
Yeah. Well, I said in your bio, you're probably, I mean, I have a lot of guests who were children actors, but 9 months probably is the youngest. And I know in part in my having the great joy of sort of deep diving into your career the last couple of weeks, gearing up for today. What a remarkable family that you were born in a trunk to. Your mom, just this glorious actress, and your father, director. Can you talk a little bit about, some people grow up and really run from the family business, and some people just really, as you did, like not just go into it, but study deeply the craft and not just be a Nepo baby, as it were, but really like deeply immerse yourself in it.
My father was adamant about passing on values as to what this craft is about. I never thought I wanted to be a famous, rich actress. I thought I was always going to be a poor, struggling stage actress. I just assumed, because our family, any money that the theater made went back into the theater. I wore my brother's clothes. I mean, we lived very frugally, and I just thought that's the lifestyle I was going to have. And theater quietly done somewhere in the sticks, that didn't matter to me, but he also instilled a professionalism in me. He was very strict as far as taking it seriously. When I was actually, the cover of the album Born in a Trunk is a picture of my mother as a wallabaloo, a wicked wallabaloo, in a musical children's theater called The Magic Butterfly that my father wrote. And I was the princess that got turned into a butterfly. And mom was putting on my makeup on the cover, getting me ready. I wasn't 3 yet. That was my first speaking role. I was the baby in Rumpelstiltskin at 9 months, but I was my first speaking role. I was Princess Primrose. I couldn't say my one line, which was my name is Princess Primrose. All I got out was my name is Princey Rosie. That was the best I could do at that time. But one day we were touring around the Bay Area, which my dad's company, the San Francisco Actors Workshop, did it on weekends. And I got really, it's the cartel, I'm just waiting for it to pass. It got, I don't know if you heard it, but
I didn't. I thought, is she crying? What's
no,
happening?
no, not yet. I cry a lot these days, but no, but I got really into putting more lipstick on backstage while I was off stage. I'd already done my role, and I'd finished acting, and I was putting lipstick on, and I missed my curtain call. And my dad, he gave me hell, really. I mean, he just said, Amy, you have been giving to those children for an hour and 15 minutes, and it was their moment to give back to you, and you weren't there. And believe me, I mean, I'm never late for anything. I mean, I have a lot of neuroses from that experience. I'm a bit crazy from that moment on, but the work was important. The truth of the work was important, not about anything else, but finding the truth, so yeah. Growing up in a theater family, for some people that might have been a nightmare. For me, it was so much fun. I mean, I loved being on the stage, and I did my first grown-up play. I was in Durham's Marriage of Mr. and Mississippi, and I was in a jail suit with wings, and I danced out of a grandfather's clock. I mean, this is fun stuff. I got to stay up late at night. Mom and Dad really kind of thought of theater as our religion, and we were always together. I fell asleep at the theater at night. Mom was on the show in a play, and all three of us kids would either be in the wardrobe department asleep on the old costumes, or we'd be put in the second row center. So Mom, as she's playing viola in 12th Night, can see out of the corner of her eye her three children falling asleep there, So I mean, that was so much of our life. And then when I was 11, my dad got offered Lincoln Center Repertory Theater, and we all moved to New York, and I got to be in plays with Mom all the time, and more on the stage in San Francisco. Lincoln Center, I did a walk-on in The Country Wife with Stacy Keach. I sold him a guinea pig. But
so at 11, you moved to New York, and your family stayed there, and that was, did you go to high school in New York?
Yeah, we stayed in New York until after high school. I went off to London to drama school. Well, first I went to ACT in San Francisco, and then when I was in London, my family moved to Los Angeles because my dad got offered work as a director in television, and my mom was she was on Dallas. She was Victoria Principal's mother on Dallas for several seasons. So yeah, we lived in New York from up until I graduated from high school. I went to High School of Music and Art for 2 years. I studied the violin. I'm actually on an album, the Manhattan Borough-wide Orchestra, but I'm like the last stand second violins. I was like the worst person in it, but I did play I liked music and art, and that was fun. And then after 2 years there, I started working professionally, and so I went to where my mother went to, which was professional children's school. They accommodate your schedule. So right. I was doing an off-Broadway play called And Chocolate on Her Chin when I was 16, and they would let me come and go and do some of the courses on correspondence.
When you say that growing up the way you did, and obviously a family so deeply rooted in theater, and the religion of theater, as you just described it. So how did this, when you said, I never imagined myself a famous film actress, how did that happen? Like, where did the paths sort of converge? And then, I mean, you always kept doing theater, which is why everybody, I mean, it's just awesome that you have, because theater is hard. It's so hard. I mean, it's all hard, but it's a different kind of hard. How did film come into your life, and how did that journey begin?
Well, when I finished 3 years in London at drama school, London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, coming home, because my parents had moved to Los Angeles, coming home was to Los Angeles, and I hadn't really thought about what I was going to do next. You're making a lot of noise lapping up that water, Jules.
This is a very dog-friendly podcast. All the dogs are welcome.
Oh, good. Coming home from drama school, my parents now lived in Los Angeles. And before I got off the airplane, my mother's agent, Nicole David, saw a picture of me on my mom's piano and said, "Who's that? And can I have her?" So I had an agent when I arrived. And I was like, I immediately went to the Free Shakespeare Theater in the Hollywood Hills and did Romeo and Juliet by night. But by day I was, hi Jules, but by day I was doing Happy Days, Policewoman, I mean, the Rookies, I mean, you know, I was doing those kind of things. And then the first year I was in Hollywood, I got Carrie. It was George Lucas and Brian De Palma were conducting auditions together because George was looking for his Princess Leia and his cast, and Brian was looking for his cast, and since they were all the same age, they combined it. So we all, I mean, how terrifying is that? Your first year in Hollywood, and there I am sitting in a room with Brian De Palma and George Lucas. It was daunting.
And are
But
you reading sides for both? Are you reading
yeah,
for both of them for both projects?
Well, first you met with them, and then I did a screen test for George. I was actually second runner-up for Princess Leia. You can actually see my screen test on YouTube. It's just awful. I don't know how I even got to be second place. But the thing is, you know, you're trying to imagine having never heard of Star Wars before.
Right.
And you get a script that says, and then R2D2 and C3PO, and you've got all the, it's like speaking a foreign language. I didn't really know what I was saying.
Of course
But
not.
when I look at the screen test, it was like, you know, oof, awful. And meanwhile, Brian De Palma was conducting weeks of auditions where we'd all different groups of kids would get together, and we would do improvs in his apartment, and we do screen tests, and we were put through it, you know. And Brian actually helped me on my audition for my screen test for Star Wars, because he said, this is going to be a much bigger film. You should get this film, Amy. I was like, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So he
But
just was a fan right away.
he was a good man. He actually introduced me to my first husband. He set me up on my first 2 dates with him.
That is so they were friends, and he was like, you should meet Steven.
Well, what happened was, I think he was never enamored of Steven's girlfriends at the time, and Brian had a girlfriend. He just thought that we would like each other. And what he did though was he sent me in to audition to meet a meeting at Universal Studios with Steven to play the mother of a 4-year-old in Close Encounters of a Third Kind. Well, I mean, at the time I looked about 12, and I walked into the office and Steven said, you know, you're too young for this part. And I said, yeah, I know. Brian had said, go party all night or something, go in looking old or whatever. But we talked, we had a nice conversation, Steven and I was in the office for about an hour, and then I left. And then Brian said, so did he ask you out? And I said, no. And he called Steve and he said, did you ask her out? And he said, I'm not going to ask her out in a professional meeting. That's
right.
So unprofessional. I would never do that. So then Brian set up a dinner with Brian and his then girlfriend, Marty Scorsese and his then wife, and Steven Spielberg and me. I mean, like, I drank a lot that night.
Yeah.
But we started seeing each other then, and we were living together pretty quickly after that.
Were you, because my memory is foggy, were you suddenly thrust
Wait, you're going to ask me something, and my memory is probably foggier than yours.
Well, this is pre-social media, so life was easier. You could be people who both were in the entertainment industry and be out and about without it kind of creating the frenzy that maybe it would now. Like growing up without social media was just a much easier time. But were you immediately thrust into sort of being a famous couple? And did you have to adjust to that at the time?
You know, Steven and I mean, I know we had a certain cachet. We weren't that interesting a couple to anybody.
So people weren't chasing you and going through your garbage. It didn't feel like that.
We were kind of a boring couple, I would guess. As a matter of fact, we used to have security guards travel with us once Max was born because of there were certain dangers involved in, kidnapping. There were all, it was things that probably Stephen was more fearful of than I was. I used to just throw white light around them and be fine, but we had 2 security guards with us all the time. One of Max's and my favorite pastimes when he was very little was to lose the security guards. We'd be walking down New York streets and we'd cut down an alley and lose them just because that was, but what was really funny was one of the security guards threatened us with writing a book, because he was with us so much. I mean, he was with us even when we almost got married. We were in Vegas at one point. We thought about getting married, but then I thought, I don't want the security guards to be our witnesses. That wasn't the way to do it. But he threatened to write a book, and Stephen and I just looked at each other and burst out laughing, because it's like, what's he gonna say?
They ate spaghetti on Tuesday.
Yeah, as a matter, I got a worse time fame-wise when I was married to my second husband, because he was very big in Brazil, Bruno Barreto, because he had directed Donna Flor and Her Two Husbands. So he was like a very 21 when he did that. He was a big deal. And so when I went down there pregnant with our child, I was 8 months, I think I was 7.5 months pregnant. I was in Búzios, Brazil, which is 2 hours outside of Rio. It was a little town that Brigitte Bardot put on the map because she went there with her to a fishing village with her Brazilian lover, and it became the Saint-Tropez of Brazil. And Bruno had a house there, and my first time there, and I had no Portuguese yet, and he had to go into Rio, and I'm on the back patio veranda balcony off the bedroom, and I'm home alone, except, in Brazil, you're never alone. I mean, there's the couple that lives there. Dona Maria was there and Carlinhos was there, but I couldn't speak to them because I didn't speak Portuguese and they didn't speak English. And I thought, okay, well, Bruno's gone for the day, so I'm going to put hair conditioner in my hair, and I'm going to get into a bikini, even though I'm 7.5 months pregnant, and I'm going to go sit out on the hammock. And just as I was getting into the hammock, and I'm very carefully with my belly and everything, and I suddenly hear click, 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 click. And a paparazzi had showed up on the beach and started taking pictures of me. Now I have hair conditioner in my hair. I have a bikini. I am 7.5 months pregnant. I did not want to be photographed, and I ended up putting the hammock over my head. So now you've just got this person hanging there with a hammock over her head with just the legs sticking out. And I think, oh, well, there's a great picture for the magazines. And I'm just horrified. And I remember going in, and I don't know what to do. And I go and I call my mother in Los Angeles. I said, I don't know what to do. This is gonna be the most humiliating moment of my life, and whatever. And then the phone rings, and it's Bruno's grandmother, and she speaks enough English for me to tell her what had happened. And she got in touch with Bruno, who got in touch with the various newspapers and found out who it was and managed to squash it. So, but somewhere out there, there's a photo of me very pregnant with a hammock over my head.
If we can find that, my work is done. My work is done. Well,
I've never
there
seen
you
it,
go.
so I don't know what happened to it.
Well, you've been doing this a really long time. And I mean, I want to get to the album, which we will, because when you brought up the last name of your son, who is so involved now in this record and in your singing, but I do want to talk a little bit about Yentl, which is another film. Speaking of actresses who sing, Barbra Streisand is another one. You just keep finding yourself in these cultural moments in cinema that are just so incredibly long lasting, and also have, again, there's a lot of Jewish pride in that project as well, right? It's another story about a Jewish person, and yet once again, it is so universally beloved. It's about somebody wanting into something they can't be in and finding a way to get in there, and love, right? And That is such a uniquely beautiful film. And I wonder, did you audition for that movie?
No, as a matter of fact, Barbara offered it to me and I turned it down
Because,
because I hadn't been on the stage for a while. I did 5 films without doing a play. And when she offered it to me, I was 7 months into a run on Broadway of Amadeus.
oh,
And
right,
I
right.
just loved being back on the stage.
Yeah. And
And
that show was incredible. Yeah.
it was a great show, and I had, working with Ian McKellen and Peter Firth I was it was great to be back in New York. It was great to be on the stage again, and I really didn't think I wanted to go do a film. And also, when I first read it, it read like a sweet young thing, and I didn't know the challenges, and
Right.
I like to be challenged. I don't want to do anything I've done already. And then Barbara said, could you come to my apartment on the Upper West Side and let's talk? Well, she was so impassioned about this project, and it was such a dream for her. And, when that kind of sensibility comes your way, you want to be a part of it. I mean, she deserved to make the film that she wanted to make. And I just knew I was going to be in good hands with her. And I'm really
Did you know her? Did you
No.
know her before? Did you know Mandy Patinkin? Did you know anyone involved?
I did
Where
not.
did that film?
We were mostly in London, and then the exteriors were in Czechoslovakia, in
Well,
Prague, in a place called Zagreb.
wow. And do you remember where you were when you found out you were nominated for an Oscar?
Yeah.
Can you just share that?
Well, it was funny because I didn't even know it was the day they were announcing, because I don't imagine that's ever going to come my way. I didn't think about those things in those days. I never. And I lived in a little house in Santa Fe at the time. I lived alone there, and I got the phone call in the morning, and I had my sister lived in Santa Fe too, so I immediately got together with her so we could jump up and down. It was pretty exciting.
Who did you go to the ceremony with?
That's funny because Stephen called to congratulate me. He and I had broken up. We'd been apart for about 3 years now. And he, I'm trying to remember what happened. Oh yeah, he called to congratulate me, and he said, well, I guess I'll be sitting at the television watching you that night. And that's when I said, well, you want to take me? And that's when we got back together. It was literally the date that brought us back together.
So that was a magical night.
It was, and I was so relieved when I didn't win.
Is that true? Can you
Oh
just
my
share,
God.
what does that mean?
Well, I first of all, I knew I knew that Linda Hunt was going to win for The Year of Living Dangerously. But just as I sat down, Jim Brooks sat down next to me. He was nominated too, and he said, "Nick the Greek says you're 2-1." And I'm like, I have no speech ready. And, luckily, Best Supporting Actress is early on, so I didn't have to suffer long. But
Right.
I was petrified because I didn't have anything prepared. And when they announced Linda Hunt, I was like, oh my God. I've won an Obie for Road to Mecca. And I didn't know I had won, but when they had the ceremony, they invited me, and I declined to go. And they said, I think you should come. So I knew I was winning.
There was an inkling. Yeah.
And I did prepare something. I was still terrified getting up. I'm not very good at getting up in front of people as myself. I think that's why getting up and singing as myself has been a big challenge. Because when you hide behind a character, if somebody doesn't like what you're doing, you can blame it on the character. If somebody doesn't like what you're doing as yourself, that's you. It's very vulnerable.
Okay, well, let's talk about that, because I know somehow you were the singing voice of Jessica Rabbit, which is like a little known fact already that people might not have even known. So obviously whether you sang in the shower and, your friends knew that you sang, there are times in the work as a character that you sang Honeysuckle Rose. I mean, how did you come to this moment? I mean, I just think you're extraordinary. All the things that you've done, all the challenges that you've taken on. But singing is, for some reason, it is terrifying if that is not how you see yourself, right? Or how you introduce yourself in the world professionally. So I know that your son has been highly encouraging, which is just so beautiful. I have a kid, I have a son, he's 16. I hope in in his adult life, he sees something in me that I don't know about yet. What a beautiful thing to have happen. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I got to tell you, what Gabriel and I have right now is like, we pinch ourselves. We're like, how incredible that we're taking this journey together. He got me drunk and convinced me to cut an album with his band that he manages, Gulis, and I'm a big fan of this band, and I thought, okay, I'll do it, and Gabriel, I could pick any songs I wanted at all to sing on the album, and Jules David Bartkowski is a really wonderful arranger. He's
Right.
band leader, and
Of Gulis.
yeah, Gulis. He is Gulis, aka Gulis. That's what it is.
Okay.
Well, because when he was working, and I can't remember what country he was in, but they couldn't pronounce his name Jules, and they called him Gulis.
And that's
So
what
that's
came
why
out.
that's why the band is called Gulis. But no, I had sung one song with him, actually. It was a song that Willie and Gabriel had written together. Willie Nelson and Gabriel had written together, and for a film that Gabriel was involved in, and which never came out, but it hasn't been finished yet. But I did sing with the band for that one song for fun, and I really enjoyed it so much. So I thought, why not? So my husband Ken Bowser and I, we thought about what songs. We came up with the 10 songs from my life, my career, my marriages, my family, my any experiences, and these 10 songs, each one has a story behind how they arrived on this album. And I love what Jules has done with him. It's like doing the Jessica Rabbit song, Why Don't You Do Right? He's done a completely different rendition. I mean, when I do it in the movie, it's very kind of sultry, and he's kind of brought it a high energy version of it, very, very New Orleans kind of feel to it. And it's really fun to sing. And that Rumpelstiltskin story, my brother did the movie of Rumpelstiltskin 30 years later, when Max was 9 months old, and although Max is not the baby, but now
Your son Max.
My son Max,
Yeah.
So I stepped into my mother's shoes. My mother was the miller's daughter in the play when I was 9 months old, and now I was the miller's daughter. My mom was the nasty queen, and my brother directed it. My brother David Irving directed the movie. So one of the songs from that was called Queen of the Castle. So we do a song called Queen of the Castle, which was from that. I sing a song from Carrie. I sing a song from called Errol Flynn, which is a song that relates to my losing my dad young. I sing.
How old were you?
I was 29. My dad was young. My dad was 54.
Right, way too young. Yeah.
Yeah. I sing one of this. Willie wrote me a song called I'm Waiting Forever.
By the way, not many people can say the sentence you just said.
What did I just say?
Willie Nelson wrote me a song. Just by the way, that's not normal, Amy.
Yeah.
That's not normal.
I bet you he's written Annie quite a few, as he should.
Yeah.
But no, he wrote me the song I'm Waiting Forever, and he sings on the album with me.
So obviously, your son intuited that this was the right time, right? So much about life is just timing. It's like making space for it. I feel like the pandemic, with all of its tremendous hardships, opened up an incredible amount of creativity for people, and also seems to have, do you know Mary Steenburgen?
I've met her. I don't.
You know who she is. Like, she's another person whose acting career had really, for decades kind of satiated her creatively. And then one day she started writing songs, and now, like, in earnest, she's like, she's in Nashville when she's not acting, writing songs, like tremendous songs, and recording songs. And I think it's such a beautiful thing just for people to hear that there's no box that we have to put ourselves in, but sometimes someone has to encourage us, right? It's hard on our own. Had you ever done a cabaret show or any sort of evening of performing as you before this?
No.
No. So I know I'm speaking to you in March. A few days ago in New Jersey, you did the first concert of this material. I mean, it's one thing to do it in the safety of a studio with lots of takes if you need them, and the camaraderie of your family, this band. That's terrifying, but safer than doing it in front of people. So you just did it. I'm getting to talk to you after the night. So can you talk? How did it go? How are you? You look fantastic. You survived it. How was it?
It was fun. It was fun. It was scary. It wasn't as scary as I thought. We actually did a dress rehearsal here in the barn, my house. The band all came out here, and I invited 30 neighbors, and we kind of did it so I can experiment with it. So I didn't go out there the first time, and
Right.
and I have, I had not done the patter with the band needed to know what the show was, and
So
and
you
we
wrote a little, there's a script, there's material in between introducing each song, like a story about the song.
yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yep. And so it was I'm learning different things, like, for instance, the sound here in the barn with all the wood was so resonant and so fantastic. When the first concert, it was a wonderful group of everything, but it's a stone church, and stone church, you don't get the same resonance,
Right.
But I'm really looking forward to City Winery, because everyone says you're going to really love the sound system and stuff, and you'll be able to hear yourself. Sometimes if you can't hear yourself, we have a large band, we have a lot of horns, and
Right.
I mean, if you can't hear yourself sing, you don't know if you're singing it. I have no idea, but I have fun. And, as long as it's fun, I told Gabriel, I said I needed to do the barn show before I would let him commit to any venues. I said, I need to know I can do it, and I need to know it's fun to do. If it's just terrifying, well, I don't need to do it.
I mean, I know how much, I can only imagine how much you love music and how much music has just meant to you in your life, as it does for so many of us for so many different reasons. But what does this mean to you? Why are you doing this? What is the surprise? Sometimes we think we're doing it for some reason, and then actually it turns out to be something. Like, for me, it would be enough my son wants to do something with me. Like, he's 16. He won't do anything with me right now. I'd be like, you want me to make an album? No problem. Will you be there? But beyond that, what has it turned into?
Well, during COVID, I really thought, it did make you realize what you want. It really made you sit back and stop and say, I mean, for everything else that was going on in the world, whatever, but for my own personal experience, I'm home with my husband and my dogs. We have a really lovely world here, and we played music every day. We made music every day. I don't write music. I wish I could, but we played our guitars every day, and I sang every day. And I worked with my singing coach, Celeste Simone, who's quite brilliant. And I was just having fun with it, but I didn't want to go back to acting in front of a camera. It just, first of all, people would ask you to do things, and then, with all the COVID restrictions and how long it took, and the danger involved in it. And I just thought that I wasn't willing to risk anything for that. I love the theater. It's so much more fun doing theater than film because of the continuity and for me, the rehearsal period. I think that's the most fun thing about acting, is an actor's playground and getting to play with your director and your other actors and being creative, and you can fall on your face and you can discover, and you don't get that in film. Not really. Very few directors have much of a rehearsal going on, but that was really I've lost my, I just didn't want to go back to even that, because 8 shows a week is a lot, and it is hard. And if Tom Stoppard came to me and said he's written a play for me, I will be back on the stage.
Fair
it
enough.
has to be like that.
Yeah.
If it's not like the most amazing thing that ever happened to you, I don't necessarily want to do that. But this singing thing, when I explained this to someone, I've said this before, but when I'm acting on the stage, like for instance, when I was doing Amadeus for 9 months, maybe 10 times I walked off the stage having been totally at one with the character from the beginning to the end of the show. It was kind of like that outer body experience or inner body experience, whatever. I mean, just like the truth of the character was in me, and I didn't think about me. It wasn't me, it was the character, but consistently all through. And that's like a high. It's almost like, the high that you chase, and you're like, oh, I need another fix of that. And it really is, it feels really good. And it's like the actors are interpretive artists, so when you can actually meld the marriage happens, it just feels great. Well, when I get up on the stage and I sing these songs and tell my stories, I'm at one with my character all the time. I mean, I'm already at one with my character when I walk on stage. I get that. I mean, it's just, you get a real joy, thrill. And I got to say, having been isolated, for all of us are so isolated, and with our masks and our disconnect and our phones, or whatever, to suddenly be looking out at people and having people look back at you, and you're connecting with people again. And I felt like it was stepping back into life.
That's incredible.
And I have my son Gabriel Barreto to thank for it.
Yeah. And then we are the recipients of that joy and that community. I really hope to get to see you at City Winery. I think that will be incredible to get to see it live and in person. When is I will. It's in April, right?
April 10th. It's a Monday.
April 10th. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I would love to. When does the album itself drop? When can people hear
the single just dropped and a video just dropped of Why Don't You Do Right. The album drops, I believe, just before the City Winery show.
Okay, so in early April.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listeners, whenever you find this podcast, that Born in a Trunk will be available to you. This will not come out before the music is available for you to hear. Amy, this has been such incredible fun. Thank you.
I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. Me too.
I'm not even going to call you and tell you to edit anything out. How's that?
You need to edit nothing out. There's nothing that you will be anything but joyful that you shared with, because it's just so honest, and you are so warm and funny and generous. And I just can't thank you enough. But I have one more question to ask you before I let you go. In honor of the name of this podcast, is there a little known fact about you that you can share?
Yes, there is. And it's a good one.
Ooh, listeners.
When I was, I guess, about 15 years old, living in San Francisco, when I was at the Fillmore West watching B.B. King, Charles Manson invited me to Death Valley.
Wait, and now we're ending the podcast? What? Okay, can you promise me something? Yes. A, please come on again, but B, please write a book. Just please, you have, or get a ghostwriter and just download all your stories to them if you don't want to have to sit alone in a room all day, because I get it.
I kind of feel like this album for me is that, you know,
Wow.
I do tell a lot of my story in this album, in the stories that I tell about this. So this is sort of that.
Well, for those of us lucky enough to get to see you in person perform, how lucky are we? And for everyone else who isn't in New York right now, I'm sure Amy will continue to bring this show all over the globe.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
until then,
Willie's told me I have to buy a bus now.
all right. Well, if Willie Nelson says buy a bus, you buy a bus. It's called Born in a Trunk. Amy Irving, thank you for sharing so much of your story with me today. And thank you for your just glorious, glorious work. It's really been,
You're very kind.
well, it's been really lucky for me that I'm born at a time where I get to see it. So thank you. And I wish you just the most wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
All right.